Well, this didn't go too well in the end, unfortunately, for this set. I fixed the set, as you've seen, and you know, by repairing the sustain board and checking a few other things out, and the customer was coming to collect it, and I had it propped up against the fireplace there, and it was all well. I was plugging it in and everything, and I plugged it in, and the TV came on, and this panel was being sustained. I saw the Samsung Smart TV logo in the centre, and I could hear the sustain boards working. But as soon as that happened, the screen cracked out of random. It literally cracked by itself now. You see that crack there? Got a lot of glare in this room at the minute, but it literally cracked. Nothing came into impact with it, nothing hit it, nothing was pressed up against it. And I don't know what happened. I have a few theories for this, but this is what I was doing. I had it tilted forwards like that, and I was supporting it with my leg there, and I was actually at this end, plugging the AC cord, the kettle lead into there, or the IEC lead into there. I wasn't going to plug anything into the motherboard there, or the AV board, because I was setting this thing up with the test patterns on the screen, and it wasn't flexed at all. And I don't think it's a fault with the frame with these. That's pretty solid. That's not really flexing at all. The frames are pretty solid on these. I mean, it does have an aluminium back here, or whatever type of metal this is, to support this. And I mean, the plasma panel itself is actually built straight onto the plastic frame here, but still then it's supported pretty well. So I don't think it's a problem with the frames on these. Now, this is an energy efficient plasma, and a newer one as well. And these newer ones, the plasma display is built right into the front glass here. So it's built right into the front glass. So normally on older plasmas they have 2 layers of glass. They have one as the glass filter, because they do actually filter the light on these before it goes out. I'm not going to explain why, but... And then they have the PDP glass, or the plasma display panel glass. They have the first layer, which is the Y electrodes, and then they have all the cells pretty much built into another layer, or between the Y and X side of things, which the cells then have address electrodes going up through them, because basically the way they drive the plasma panel is they have address tabs at the bottom here which address the lines and each pixel. Then the Y drive loads of the rows and they light up, and then the X drive is used to quickly discharge them or pre-charge them. And the X side of things is the back glass. And pretty much if you crack a plasma panel, it's game over really, especially one of these, because everything's built into one sheet of glass at the front here. The polarizer's built in, then the PDP glass is all built in. So you crack the glass, you're going to short the electrodes out, because the panels are really thin in these as well. You'll short the electrodes out, and if you get an electrode short, the sustain boards can't sustain the panel, and you'll also be shorting the sustain boards out. So of course you're not going to get anything from it, and also this does use gases inside the screen, which is what emits the light when it gets struck by the sustain voltage. And of course you crack it as well, the gases will just come out of the panel. But on these newer ones, if you do crack them, the gases probably won't leak out, but you'll probably get an electrode short. Because the polarizer in these is almost like a big sheet of plastic pretty much, like an adhesive piece. So it's probably just got an electrode short. And of course, you know, I had this tilted forwards like this, as I said, plugging it in, and as soon as it cracked, you know, all I heard was something like this, just like a little tap, you know, was audible, and of course it sounded like it was from the screen, you know, on the inside. And I saw a load of red lines in this area. I thought it was like a hot spot. It might have been, but I'm not sure. But there was a load of red lines in this area. The whole top side of the display went blank. And then the lines faded away and the sustain board shut down because they detected the panel isn't sustaining. And that's pretty much game over for this TV. You know, cracked panel, game over. And there is absolutely no impact damage or anything. It's cracked from the inside of the screen. I really don't know what happened. You know, so something on the inside, obviously. What I think happened is, and there's a video by 12 Volt Vids who actually had a dispute with in the past, but he had the 51-inch version of this TV, the PS50. I think it was a D series, but the D and E series, they used the same plasma panels, and surprisingly enough, the D and E series on things like Badcaps.net, there's a lot of reports of them just randomly cracking. You know, no reason to it whatsoever. They just randomly crack, and you know, somebody will get the blame for it, like your kids or your dog or something, and you won't think anything about it. Now, he had a video, he had his, and he was going on about how there could have been an electrode short inside the screen, and it wasn't like a critical failure when it first shorted out, but what happened is the electrodes shorted, so the X and Y electrodes are shorted, or the address electrodes shorted, I don't know, which then caused a huge amount of heat build up in the area, or in my case this area, which of course, you know, glass, if it gets to a high enough temperature, it'll crack. And you know, his cracked, and he was going on about how it could have been an electrode short inside the panel, and it is possible for the electrodes in the panels to short out. It happened on a Panasonic that I seen on the forum as well, but that didn't crack, it just wouldn't work. But either way, this thing cracked on me and totally spoiled my day pretty much, because you know, when the owners dropped this off to me, it wasn't cracked, the screen was immaculate, and it was just an intermittent fault that I fixed. So as a sole trader, what I could have done is gone, I'm not paying for that, if I was an asshole and didn't care about my reputation, and set up a court case. Now, if you know, a court case for somebody like a sole trader like I am, pretty expensive, and of course, you know, I did have a video evidence of this not cracking, but when they dropped it off to me, it wasn't cracked. And if I was to go, oh no, I didn't crack it, it cracked by itself, you know, and I'm not replacing it, you know, they can, it's pretty much like I'm filling them up with shit really and just lying about it. But what I did was, I went on eBay and I bought this PS64 E8000 64-inch Full HD 3D Smart plasma, and I replaced it for them. And the guy actually just picked this up, so I'm just trying to give my name and address away there, but you know. But yeah, I brought that and he's actually just come and picked it up, and I've shown him this as well, just shown him all this. But I just replaced it for him. You know, whilst I'm not really at an age where my reputation isn't that important, but it is to me. You know, I have people tagging me in a load of posts on the sales sites that I'm part of, and you know, my name's well known, and it only takes one customer to have a bad experience and me to give bad customer service back for it to pretty much ruin me. And you know, I'm a lot much better known than the people who I used to work with, because they actually have quite a few bad reviews. Whilst they might not be on their page, there is actually quite a few things that I know. But again, you know, I had no evidence that this cracked whilst, you know, I was tilting it forwards and there was nothing impacting it. That is actually what happened, but there's no evidence. You know, I wasn't filming it. You know, the only time I'm not filming is when something like this happens. So, what can I say really, you know? It's either replace it or go to court and then foil my reputation. And it's, I mean, it's £680, you know, out of pocket, but I'd rather take a loss than of money than my reputation, pretty much. And this thing is going to be getting smashed up. You know, the owner of this has got their new TV and they're happy with it. So this thing is going to be seeing an air rifle and a BB gun and a hammer and my foot and stuff. So it's going in the bin. It's going to the tip. It's going to get smashed up because it cost me £600. And that's going to be it for this TV. You know, game over with it really. Treated it with care and it broke on me and cost me a lot of money. So, you know, I'm going to be salvaging the boards out of it that I fixed, and then this thing's going to be going in the trash. I'll just show you the pictures of it as well, and some photos off bag caps of, you know, this being a common failure for this series. And the plasma displays, you know, you'd have to be coming into contact with them pretty hard for them to crack. You know, that's pretty hard that I'm tapping that, you know what I mean? So, yeah, my theory is there was an electrode short inside the screen, which is why it went all red in that area, because the pixels, you know, got hit by 2 sustained charges. And it got really hot in that area and cracked. But again, if I was to have been filming when it cracked, I would have went to court pretty much and got a solicitor signed up, but I didn't. So it's pretty much what it is really. And yeah, here's this is where I had it set up, you know, against that fireplace. And I'm gonna have to edit that bit out, but yeah, pretty much cracked. And this is a E550, as you can see. And on bag caps, again, a thread I created about randomly cracking plasma display panels, about a D series, and I, you know, as I said, the D and E series, they use the same screens. I had a customer who messaged me about their D series Samsung plasma. It cracked whilst they was watching it, pretty much. And the guy who it was, you know, I know he takes care of his stuff, and Tom66, who's one of the best people in the UK for repairing TVs, this is what he said. Definitely it's a known issue with Samsung plasma sets. Samsung won't admit it, but the D series, and again the D and E series like this, use the same panels and the same panel design. And some E series, he says, but I don't think you realise that, but very well known to spontaneously crack. Appears to be a thermal thing. Now, again, I don't think it was when it got hot, but it cracked from cold start up. So God knows. And then he also had a so just went to see a E450 series, and tiny spiderweb crack, bit like this, isn't it? And as he said, Samsung won't admit anything. You know, they won't say it's a design flaw with their panels. you know, Samsung won't admit any of their failures. They blame it on a wear-out failure pretty much for any fault they get with their TVs. And unless you say pretty strongly that you're going to take legal action, they won't do shit. So, yep, it's a loss for me, but you know, I sorted it for my customer, and my reputation is more important than anything else. So, and if you want to see this crack, here we go. That's how you crack it. And that's how you crack a plasma. And there's pretty obvious impact damage now on the areas that I've just punched. And that's done deliberately. So yeah. And by the way, I've never cracked a single display accidentally in all 427 TVs I've fixed. So this is just one of those, pretty much. That's how many TVs I've fixed, by the way. So, PS60 550 disaster. It cracked on me and ended up costing me. The customer still paid for what the original repair price was of £90, but still that's 500 and 680, so that's £590 out of my pocket. But again, as I said, my reputation matters more than anything, and I'd rather just sort it. And the customer was dead happy. You know, he's going to be leaving a good review on my page because of my customer service. So, and that's the only thing that matters really. And any other sole traders watching this who fix TVs and you get one that you damage by accident, or you know, something like this happens, just replace it. You know, don't bother arguing, because you know, if it wasn't sent to you cracked and you try arguing something like that, you're just going to end up in heaps of crap and your reputation spoiled. And I know that for a fact because at the place I used to work at, GMC TVs, and if you watch this, this is not slander, this is a fact that what happened when I used to work there. The other technician, he actually cracked, I think at least, I counted up, I actually have it on video somewhere, I have it all stored on my PC, everything. He cracked about 5 displays when I used to work with them. And one of them, well, I think 3 of them were custom, no, 2 of them were customer ones, and the one customer, a guy called Billy, he cracked the display. He actually ripped a tab-on driver off, which he lied to the guy called Billy. He actually said that it fell off, but that was something else. He cracked it and we said we wasn't going to replace it, and the guy called Billy went absolutely insane and spread a load of bad news about everything. So, and the other person, the TV was wrecked anyway. Somebody poured liquid on the tab-on drivers and they had gotten wrecked, so you know, that was a dead job anyway. So but straight away with this, I called him up, I told him what had happened and explained a few things to him. I said I'd replace it. So yeah, customer service is important pretty much. And you know, if you do something like this, afterwards, after you replace it for the customer, beat the fuck out of the TV like that. And of course, be careful not to get glass anyway. I mean, you know. But luckily the glass inside these is sealed between 2 plastic layers, so I should be fine. Yeah, total disaster with this one, but I fixed the fault, and if anybody is watching at this point, you know, it is a common fault on these, with the Y sustain failing, and possibly the control board too. So at least I can help somebody fix their set if they get one of these pieces of shit. And also, I advise you, and I don't know if it's because I had it switched on when I was leaning it forwards, maybe, but I doubt that. you know, if it's a customer's TV, just pre-warn them that this series has a habit of cracking. The E series and the D series has a habit of cracking, but Samsung won't admit it. So just pre-warn them. Just say if it gets cracked, you know, it's nothing to do with me. It's a common fault with this series. And use this video as well. You know, I'm not copyrighting nothing. I'm not about that on my channel. You know, it's not for money. It's not for anything. So yeah, typical example of Samsung engineering shit. Cost me a lot of money, but again, you know, customer service matters more. And if you get an E series or a D series Samsung plasma to fix, tell your customer beforehand that it's a common issue on this series with them cracking at random, and it can happen pretty much. So, and I'd say one way to prevent that is don't turn it on, because there is current passing through the panel, you know, and as you know, current, the inductance across the panel, you know, it has vibrations, you know, very small vibrations. So maybe it was the current passing through the panel and the fact that I was moving it that caused an electrode short. You know, it caused one of the electrode scan lines to fall on top of the others pretty much. And then, you know, caused this issue. It might have been that, but it's just one of those really. PS60 550 repair guide turned out to be an epic fail, but just follow my advice please before it happens to you, and it could happen to you pretty much. So now I'm going to salvage all my repaired boards, and this thing is going to be going to the tip pretty much. And Samsung, you know, screw you. It was a good job they left the plasma market, because they sucked. I mean, the one I replaced it with there, I think it was an E or F8000. That is one of their best ones, pretty much, and I got that for a good price. Other TVs that size were a lot more expensive, so I did get a replacement for a good price compared to what it could have costed me. I mean, I do have the money for it, but, you know, it's just, you know, it just puts people out of pocket when shit like this happens to Samsung. But of course they won't ever admit it, because, you know, it's not Samsung's fault the TV randomly cracks, is it? It's always the customer or somebody else, you know. And they can get away with it, because, I mean, a lot of people do accidentally crack their TVs, and I don't know how. You know, I was tapping on the screen pretty hard earlier, and until I started punching it, and, you know, that was pretty hard, and I don't know how people actually crack their TVs. I know remotes get chucked into them and babies knock them off them, or I had somebody a baby was smashing a Hoover pole on the screen. I know stuff like that happens, but it's not exactly the easiest thing to do. So yeah, and anyone on bad caps, I'm not counting this as a TV that I've accidentally cracked either, because I haven't. It cracked whilst it was in my possession, yes, but I didn't crack it. So far 427 TVs fixed, and not a single one cracked by accident. Of course, I'll admit if I did accidentally crack this, but I didn't. So anyway, I'm ending this here because I'm just going to go on a rant. It's probably time to have some fun with this thing and smash it up a bit more before it goes into the tip. So, yeah, thanks for watching.